Celebrity up my G's, hope you guys are doing well. I've got a cheeky, advanced kind of NEUROFUNK REESE bass today in phase plant that I want to run through with you. And it's going to be super easy and quick tutorial, follow along. And it sounds like this. And I like the way it's got an interesting, more unique texture than a normal Reese. And that is because I've added in an element of the human voice into the Reese, and I've also modulated the movement in a nice and different kind of way using the detuning. And I've also, I've really refined the sound through a number of coloured distortion techniques. So, to begin with, we will start off with the classic Reese formula, which is basically to have two saw waves. Okay, so we're going to have one saw wave here and one down here, and this one's going to be at -12. Okay, and adding in the second one at -12 and then 0.36, it's going to start to create the Reese wobble due to the detuning, of course. And then I've created an LFO, and I've set the output of this LFO to go to the semitones of the Reese, and by modulating that a little bit to the left so it becomes even further away from the original pitch, I can then draw in a lovely little pattern, and as the line creeps up, the detuning will increase, and we can have a nice bit of movement to play around with, and just great to make the patch have a bit more life within it already. So once that's sort of set up, which is wonderful, I've actually also added a little low pass filter on after both of these saw waves. Okay, because we could leave the high end in, but saw waves are quite harsh, so I wanted to take that out. So I've added a low pass filter on each one, up to just around 1K on each, or 1.6 and 1.17. This bottom one here I've tracked to my LFO to give it just a little bit of variation. Okay, and now to make the Reese more advanced and a little bit different, we're going to add in a granular sound. And I've opened the granular generator, and I've gone on the phase plant presets in the vocals and the male scream. And I haven't really toyed with any of the settings, except for the fact that I've added the start position on the LFO. So the start position is going to sort of move around the actual the sample, and I've turned the volume down so it's a little bit lower than the saw waves. And then on this one I've also added a filter to take out some of the low end, so kind of doing the opposite role. This is providing some high end or mid-range and high end kind of frequency content to the Reese. So again, before we go on to like slamming it with distortion, because the sound is going to change a lot, all we're doing now is we're shopping for the ingredients, and it makes sense to make a plate of dinner that is balanced, So the saw waves are doing the main chunk of the bass movement, and with their detuning, and it's all like the whole low end and the mid range. But because they were harsh, I've taken out the high end of them, and we're going to re-substitute the high end with the natural sound, which is the human voice. So that's why I've chosen to do it like this. So just, we're still getting the ingredients ready to cook. And this final little bit of white noise on top as well. The little seasoning, And we're just sprinkling that salt and pepper by also cutting out all of the low end pretty much, on the cutoff up to about 3K or a little bit higher. Okay, so that's the main kind of things going on there. I think there's a tiny bit of filter movement on a couple of these settings just within the LFO to give it a little bit of variation and shape the dynamic of the sound a little more. And then I'm actually also going to add on the unison on this one, and it's just on ×3. The spread and detune kind of left as they are. The blend is sort of all the way off at 0, and then I'm just going to mix the blend from 0 to 100 on the LFO. So as it creeps up And as the detuning increases and the speed increases, the blend will come on and the sound will also unison more, so it'll get like wider as it comes to the top. So it's quite extreme. I could take that down a little bit, so maybe like 80%. So you get that like kind of mono to stereo dynamic in the shape of the sound as well. So that's like the basic sound sources all set up. And then now we're going to do what Phase Plant does best and distort the living daylights out of it, because that's where we're going to get the most unique and interesting tones from the sound. But the ingredients have been set up nicely in preparation for this phenomenon. Okay, so lots of words today have been spoken. Foldback mode. I really enjoy the shaper because you can simply, between the complex and the simple, you know, before you even get to drawing in your own shapes, you can click around and find so many great different harmonics that can affect your sound in a different way. So just a case of trying them all out. And the foldback mode here just really amps up everything that we've already got. It amps up the low end, amps up the high end beautifully. And then a non-linear filter next starts to shape the sound a bit by sculpting out a bunch of the mid-range. And we've got a nice cutoff position at around 285 hertz with a little bit of movement, sweeping up and down through the mid-range a little bit. That notch filter on the biased mode, again, I've just gone through the different flavors and chosen the best one. Biased one fitted well for this race. That one, well, the notch filter is the primary thing that I wanted to have because that gives it that drum and bass neurofunk feeling. Always, you know, when you filter it in that with that shape, you know. So again, we've taken out a bunch of harmonics, so you're going to feel free to saturate it once more. So this time with the distortion mode rather than the shaper mode. So just overdrive, baby. And this is where it really came into its own. So it was a sort of combination of the shaper, then the filter, and then the normal distortion. You know, best of three, best of both worlds, best of three worlds. That's how I got the main meat ready to be shipped to the factory, okay? Now on the way to the factory, this has gone on a very strange analogy, but I think you guys know what I'm talking about, hopefully. Now we're basically doing our last minute enhancements. So a touch of reverb, the convolver, mass howl, again, scrolling through the presets till I find a color that fits. This felt like a smooth fit. Wonderful bit of room sound to it. Boosting the high end frequently because mostly it's sort of been low passed quite a lot in the initial stages, and although I've added in my little white noise and my vocal, it still like needs more grit, you know. But the distortion that has the tone that we've got through that distortion has provided us with that basis for the grit, and now I'm just sort of exaggerating it a bit more here. I'm boosting the highs wonderfully, and now we're going through our next shaper. And again, on this one, I've just literally gone through and clicked around and found one that I like, which is the chic mode here. And it's a little bit too extreme at 100% mix. Sounds good. It just was slightly over distorted for me. So just tamed that down to about 30%. And here on the mix knob, the shaper in both regards, the first one was 100%. This one just, you know, at this point, you know, I'm getting towards the end of the sound's capabilities with how much I can physically saturate it. So I have to be a bit careful towards the end. Otherwise, I'll just sort of destroy the whole dynamics. There's a little bit of high end. It's sort of like part of the saw waves and the distortion have this static high end fizz to them, which is almost slightly not so nice on the ears. It's a little bit too static, you know. So a little bit of chorusing or flanging or ensemble or something to like move the voices around in the high end will make the whole thing a bit smoother and more enjoyable. And so the flanger here I've just used in a very small amount, 10%. Just because it's going to move all of those voices around. And so those voices in the high end that were a little bit harsh and sort of staying too still, at least those will move around a little bit. And it's a subtle thing, you know, and I might have lost a tiny bit of low end power, but it's a bit of a trade-off to get the whole sound to have a little bit more of a smooth high end, you know. So a little bit of flanging can sometimes, I sometimes use it to like smooth out the high end a little bit if it's still a little bit harsh. And then finally, once I've done that, I'm just boosting the highs one more time. I like to do that at the end of the processing usually, just to finish off the sound. And there you have it. That's the little advanced phase plant Reese for you guys today. Hopefully it inspires one of you. Yeah, it's just the whole concept again. Playing with the detuning between the saw waves as the main sort of movement, and also modulating how much they are detuning to give an increasing and decreasing speed to the Reese, which can be quite exciting. As you obviously glide up and down the keyboard as well, it's obviously also gonna, you know, increase the detuning, because that's just naturally how a Reese works, you know. But that's cool as well. And the final thing is also to note, yeah, I could have probably gone through a bunch of different like grains and different samples and found perhaps an even better texture. This is just to show you the concept. You can set up the basis for the Reese, get all that low end and mid range nice and powerful and all that detuned movement on it, and then you can make the Reese more creative and into your own by just, you know, layering on something different in the high end, a little bit more natural perhaps. And then when you combine those things together and distort them loads, run them through a nice notch filter as well to give it a bit more of a drum and bass classic neurofunk feeling, and enhance the rest of the sound with a few effects here and there, then you can, yeah, you have the formula to create your own Reeses that will always be different, will always have a little organic flavor and niceness to them. And yes, that is basically the tutorial for today. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope you were able to follow along, but more importantly, perhaps just take something from this technique, apply it to your own sound design, have a lot of fun making some wicked sounds. I love you very much, my G's. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. I'll be back tomorrow with another video. I will see you guys then. Peace out. Much love. Ciao, ciao.